What's going on, guys? Let me know if you can see me. Let me know if you can hear me. How's everybody doing? What's going on, God soldiers? How's everybody doing? Aldo Schmedak, Prepper Camper, Redneck Prepper. I think I saw Alpine Preparedness in here. How's it going, Alpine? New York Adventurer 1994, Grandma Deb, Parabellum Prepper, Lee Billy, Lorna, Samantha MV. I hope you guys are doing well. K. Paul, Espen English, Rip Curl Readiness, Mama of Six, Smoking Swamp Outdoors, Kinkoi. I hope you guys are doing well. So this is my first live stream in a while. I haven't streamed in a couple of weeks. I had a strike, so I couldn't post anything for 2 weeks. And so it's been a while since I've done a live stream, so I figured I would jump on here and do a stream and have some interaction with you guys and give you a live update. We have a lot of stuff going on. A lot of breaking news. Something huge is about to happen. So I want to just share the latest information. The last 24 hours has just been insane. 24 to 48 hours has just been insane. Just so much news. Bradley Moore, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that, bro. Thanks for all your support. I really appreciate that. Kingdom Prepper, great to see you. D's Crafts, Jacqueline James. So I think I'm just going to jump right into it. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I'm going to try to get this done as quickly as possible. It's a Thursday night, so this way we can have some time to relax, and enjoy the weekend. What's going on, Off-Grid Desert Farming? Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. It's good that you restarted your channel here on YouTube. So I'm going to just share my screen here. Let me share my screen. One moment, please. So let me just show you what we have going on right now. So there was just an air raid alert in Ukraine. I have the alerts set up on my phone, actually. So what happens is anytime there's an air raid alert, I get an alert on my phone. There's an app you can download. If anybody's interested, you can email me and I'll tell you how to get the app. But it's a free app and you can set the location in Ukraine. I have it set for Kyiv, the capital. So anytime there's an air raid alert, I get an alert on my phone. And there was one this evening. As far as I know, there's no missile strike that I'm aware of. But what's interesting is we have a lot of activity here over Poland this evening. We have a P-8 Poseidon, which is a sub-hunter plane that was flying right off of Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad is a Russian province sandwiched between Lithuania and Poland, and it was doing a really dense pattern right off of Kaliningrad, which is something that I personally have not seen ever before. And I've been following these planes for probably about 2 years or so. So this is pretty unusual. And then there were 2 mid-air refuelers all evening in southeastern Poland. They were doing these big loops here right near the border of Ukraine. This is where all the Western equipment comes into this area here. There's a city here called Rzeszów, this city right here. And there's an international airport, and there's Patriot missile batteries set up there. And this is where all the Western equipment comes in. But you could see these 2 big loops here in southeastern Poland, these mid-air refuelers all evening. I don't know, what they were refueling, but whatever they were refueling had their transponders off because, as you see, there's no other planes in the area. It's just these 2 refuelers here which is really bizarre. So usually you'll see like one of these if like an air raid, if there's an air raid alert, anytime there's an air raid alert in Ukraine, from my experience, you'll usually see like one of these midair refuelers flying over here near the border near Lviv. But there were two of them tonight. And for all we know, these could actually be recon planes. So they call them midair refuelers because they didn't actually update the tag on the flight trackers. So, like if you look here, they call them a strato tanker. But if you look at the actual image, if you look closely at the picture, it looks more like a recon plane. So, from what some very smart people have told me, what basically occurs is that the U.S. military operates these strato tankers under the tag of a strato tanker, but really they're actually recon planes. And actually, it was Lee Wheelbarger who told me that. And as you guys know, Lee Wheelbarger, he doesn't make up stories, you know. So if he tells you something, it's most likely fact, you know, because he's all about the facts. But there were two of these, which is very rare. And then, of course, yesterday we had a massive amount of emergency action messages. There were over 65 that I counted. My source according to my source, there were 65 emergency action messages. Okay. And that is just ridiculous. Okay. That is just absolutely insane. You know, an elevated level of emergency action messages is like 30 plus in a day. And yesterday there were 65. Like right before the war started in Ukraine, there were like over 30 every day for like a week. Okay. So anytime something is about to happen, there's usually a big uptick in these emergency action messages. And there were a lot of people trolling my last video, saying, "Oh, how can you listen to an emergency action message? Isn't that classified? Don't you have to be in the military to be able to listen to those?" No, actually, you don't, because they're encrypted first of all, so nobody knows what they mean except the people that are receiving it. Okay, they have a special encryption algorithm that they use to decrypt the message, and then that tells them, you know, whatever that's supposed to mean. Okay, so yeah, you can listen to it on radio. Okay, any kind of most shortwave radios, ham radios, some ham wave radios will pick it up. Some won't. But you know, usually you can listen to them with software defined radio, which is SDR, and they're on the frequency H.992 usually, or 11.175. Those are the two common frequencies, and there's some other ones, but these are broadcasted to our nuclear armed submarines. And you know, the Pentagon broadcasts these messages to the subs. Okay, so these messages are coded messages. Yes, we can hear them as members of the general public, but we don't know what they mean. And we can usually tell when something is about to go down, because when something is about to go down, they transmit a lot more of these messages. And from what everybody understands about them, these are nuclear attack options that are transmitted from the Pentagon, which is also known as the NMCC, National Military Command Center. The Pentagon is the primary command center in the event of a nuclear war or some kind of an escalation. The Pentagon is the primary command center unless it is under attack or there's missiles inbound. Then they evacuate to Raven Rock, which is in Pennsylvania, and that's a bunker under a mountain, and it's in Pennsylvania, not too far from Camp David, and that's the alternate military command center. Okay, but this is very serious for them to be sending out that many messages yesterday. Is a huge indication of something going on. And what's interesting is that today Zelensky came out and said that Russia was planning some kind of sabotage on the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. And then we also have some breaking news that Senator Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal they proposed a resolution to invoke Article 5 if Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine or if they sabotage the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So I actually have the video. So we're going to listen to what they had to say earlier today. They did a press conference, and that's the reason why I'm doing this emergency alert. This is very serious, guys. Something is about to happen. That's my opinion. I'm not 100% certain of that, of course. Nobody can predict the future. So this is my opinion, and I'm allowed to share my opinion. I'm not saying, to panic or anything like that, but something is definitely going on. It seems like something could happen with that nuclear plant or with some kind of a nuclear launch from Belarus to Ukraine, okay? If you guys don't know, Vladimir Putin moved the nuclear weapons into Belarus from Russia. And a lot of people are concerned that he did that because he is planning to launch them at Ukraine. Logically, it makes sense because by moving them to Belarus, it does two things. Number one, he can deny responsibility for it because the attack happened from Belarus and not from Russian soil. So he could say, well, we didn't launch it, Belarus launched it. And what it would also do is if there's any kind of retaliation, like let's say NATO responds and they want to destroy the missile launchers, because they're going to be able to identify where the missiles came from. If they do decide to do that, they're going to be able to track it. And all these missile attacks that have been happening against Ukraine the last, year and a half, don't think that our Pentagon can't track every single missile that's being fired into Ukraine, because they can. They can track every single missile that's being fired into Ukraine from Russia, so they know what's going on. Okay, we have satellites, we have radars, we have planes that can pick up these things. So they'd be able to track where these missiles were launched from, and then if NATO decided to retaliate, it wouldn't be a retaliation on Russian soil, it would be a retaliation on Belarusian soil. So by moving those nuclear weapons to Belarus, it's a little bit concerning. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm just thinking about theoretical possibilities and just kind of speculating. None of this is fact, just my speculation. But what is fact is there was this P-8 Poseidon here, and it was flying right off the coast of Kaliningrad. Here's Kaliningrad right here. And this is Poland already. Poland is literally right next to Kaliningrad. And so, this thing was flying like literally 50 miles off the coast of Kaliningrad and just doing these loops here. I've never seen this dense of a pattern in this area by a P-8 since I've been following them. This is pretty interesting, pretty unusual. And then these two mid-air refuelers here, supposed mid-air refuelers also. Okay, so wanted to just share that with you. And let's see, what else do we have going on here? We also had a nuke sniffer plane that was in the air yesterday at the same time as all those EAMs were being broadcasted. There was a nuke sniffer plane in the air, okay? And if you don't know what a nuke sniffer plane is, it's also known as a constant phoenix. And these planes can basically detect trace amounts of radiation in the air. And so they have like these air intakes. So when they fly, the air comes into the plane, and they have like different machines that can scan the air, whatever, like not scan it, but sample it. and determine if there's any radiation. So that was in the air yesterday. So something is going on, guys. Here we have a E6 Mercury that's in the air right now. It just took off from Tinker Air Base, and it looks like it's heading out to the Pacific. This is a very common pattern or path that they take. They go out from Tinker and they go out to the Pacific, and then they do loops over the Pacific, and that's how they communicate with the submerged nuclear-armed submarines. But what's really weird is I haven't noticed as many E6s in the last like 3 weeks or so. I haven't noticed a whole lot. And I'm wondering if they're flying with their transponders off now, because I used to see like 3 or 4 a day, usually at least like 2 per day. And now I'm like barely seeing 1 a day, which doesn't make any sense because yesterday there were 65 EAMs. So, usually when that happens, you have like 3 or 4 of these up in the air. So I don't know if they're flying with their transponders off. I'm just speculating because I haven't been seeing them as much. So let me just share this press conference with you guys with Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal. And so you can hear for yourself what they actually said today. Richard Blumenthal literally said that there would be a total obliteration of Russian forces if they launch nuclear weapons. Okay, so very strong words today. I've never heard these kinds of words being used by any American politician since this war started. Okay, these are senior senators. Okay, these are senators that have been around for a while. They're very powerful people. Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal. So for them to be saying this kind of stuff, it has a lot of weight to it, So let me just share the screen here. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm sharing here. Let me see if I can. Got to get that logo off there so I don't get a copyright. Let's see here. See what you guys are saying in the chat before I continue, because this is a pretty long video. Lee Billy gifted 20 memberships. Thank you, Lee Billy. I appreciate you, man. Ruthie Green, thank you for that donation. I appreciate that. Jelly Bean, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that very much. I want to quickly mention Aldo Schmedak. Some of you guys may know him. He's a regular here on the channel. He just informed me that his mom got diagnosed with cancer. So just keep her in your prayers as much as possible. So that's Aldo Schmedak. He's in the chat right now. Russia does have subs in Kaliningrad. They have the Baltic Fleet. So the Baltic Fleet does not have nuclear armed subs, but they do have various attack subs. Russia's nuclear armed subs are primarily kept in Yagelnaya Naval Base in the Kola Peninsula near Murmansk, and then also in Rybachi in Vladivostok, in Rybachi Base, which is it's in Kamchatka, that peninsula there. I forgot the name of it, but it's that little peninsula north of Japan. If you look on the map, there's like a little peninsula that comes off, and there's a base there. But most of their nuclear armed subs are in Yagelnaya, which is in Murmansk. They have their Delta 4 and one of their Bore class subs there. I'm trying to think if they have their Delta 4s either in Yagelnaya or in Rybachi. I can't remember which one has the Delta 4s. The Delta 4s are the older one, and the Bore class subs are the new one. I'll have to double check that. But anyway, let's play this video. This is the conference from earlier. Okay, I want you guys to pay attention very closely to what they say here. But they say that they want to invoke Article 5 if Russia uses nuclear weapons against Ukraine. So this is very serious, guys. Very, very serious. Let me play this for you now.
Thank you for coming. There's a lot of news to cover in Washington, and
Let me know if you guys can hear them speaking. If the volume's good, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear them speaking or not.
I appreciate y'all attending this news conference. We're going to do something different. We're not mad at each other. We're not trying to sanction each other.
Okay, thumbs up. All right,
We're
good.
trying to work together on one of the most important issues.
Kind of low. Yeah.
Affecting America's national security.
I can't turn it up anymore, so you're just gonna have to turn your volume up. It's just the site that I'm using, so you're just gonna have to turn it up a little more. But I can't get it any louder. But let's listen to what they have to say. Okay, this is I would say this is historic. These two senators, what they're saying here, this could go down in history potentially.
Washington, and I appreciate y'all attending this news conference. We're going to do something different. We're not mad at each other. We're not trying to sanction each other. We're trying to work together on one of the most important issues.
Thank you, Tommy M. I appreciate the donation.
National security, world stability, and as the grievance campaign up here in Washington seems to be unending, Senator Blumenthal and myself have not taken our eyes off a defining moment, and that's the war in Ukraine. So we're introducing a resolution today, since the Senate resolution that says that if Russia or Belarus, or a proxy of Russia, explodes a nuclear device inside of Ukraine to stop the counteroffensive or to try to break the will of the Ukrainian people, such an attack should be considered an attack on NATO itself.
All right, I'm going to go back and let's listen to that again, because this is basically tells you everything you need to know. Okay, he says if Russia or a proxy of Russia uses nuclear weapons against Ukraine, it would be considered an attack on NATO itself. Okay, so let's just listen to this again. All right.
Have not taken our eyes off a defining moment, and that's the war in Ukraine. So we're introducing a resolution today, since the Senate resolution that says that if Russia or Belarus, or a proxy of Russia, explodes a nuclear device inside of Ukraine to stop the counteroffensive or to try to break the will of the Ukrainian people, such an attack should be considered an attack on NATO itself. We're of the belief that
such an attack should be considered an attack on NATO itself. There you go.
Nuclear weapon unleashed in Ukraine would irradiate large portions of Europe where we have NATO allies. And why are we doing this? President Biden says threat of Putin using tactical nuclear weapons is real. That's like the 20th story down. So with a sense of urgency, we're urging our colleagues here to get serious about what could happen in Ukraine. Moving the tactical nuclear weapons out of Russia to Belarus was unnerving and I think very provocative. The counteroffensive is moving slowly but steadily. They're looking for a break. They will commit the forces that have been trained by the West 6 or 8 regiments, thousands of well-trained, well-equipped forces will be put into the battle when they can exploit an opportunity. So the Ukrainians are patient. Russia has.
Let's just listen to this again. I mean, what he says here is he said that Ukraine still hasn't started the counterattack, but I just want to go back a little bit and listen again. He emphasized what Biden said, okay, and I reported on this 3 days ago. All right, Biden said that the use of tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine is real, okay? So he's mentioning this, and he's saying that the media is not covering it enough, which is unusual. So let's just go back and listen one more time, because this is huge, guys. This is absolutely huge. This could be historic. I mean, this could be, history in the making here.
So with a sense of urgency, we're urging our colleagues here to get serious about what could happen in Ukraine. Moving the tactical nuclear weapons out of Russia to Belarus was unnerving and I think very provocative. The counteroffensive is moving slowly but steadily. They're looking for a break. They will commit the forces that have been trained by the West, 6 or 8 regiments, thousands of well-trained, well-equipped forces will be put into the battle when they can exploit an opportunity. So the Ukrainians are patient. Russia has fortified their defensive positions. They've mined the whole country. They've been committing war crimes on steroids, very abusive war being waged by Putin. But we're here to talk about something nobody else seems to want to talk about. I applaud President Biden for putting on the table that the threat of Putin using a nuclear weapon in Ukraine is real. And our message is to those around Putin that if you do this, if you follow his order, if he ever gives it, you can expect a massive response from NATO, and you will be at war with NATO.
Wow.
I can't believe that NATO.
Wow, this is huge, guys. Let's just play this again. This is crazy. Let me play this for you again. This is really strong words here from a senior U.S. senator. Let's hear this again.
His order, if he ever gives it, you can expect a massive response from NATO, and you will be at war with NATO.
All right, so he says you can expect a massive response from NATO, and you will be at war with NATO. All right, let's play that again. This is absolutely huge, guys. Absolutely huge.
That if you do this, if you follow his order, if he ever gives it, you can expect a massive response from NATO, and you will be at war with NATO. Around Putin. That if you do this, if you follow his order, if he ever gives it, you can expect a massive response from NATO, and you will be at war with NATO. That if you do this, if you follow his order, if he ever gives it, you can expect a massive response from NATO, and you will be at war with NATO. I can't believe that NATO nations would allow their countries to be irradiated by a nuclear attack emanating in Ukraine, not to consider that attack on the neighboring country and NATO writ large. So as we go into the 4th of July holiday, people are going to do things at home. They're going to meet with their constituents. They're going to travel. Senator Blumenthal and I want to put everybody in this body and this Congress on notice that the threat of a use of a nuclear device by Russia is real. And the best way to deter it is to give them clarity, the Russians, as to what happens if they do that. They will be in a war with NATO.
Thank you.
I want you guys to listen very carefully to Richard Blumenthal. He says some really strong words here. I've never heard this before yet from any American politician, what this guy is about to say. I want you to listen very closely.
So let me express my thanks to Senator Graham for his leadership, which has been constant, steadfast, courageous. And this effort has been bipartisan. The reason that we got our legislation or resolution through urging that Russia be declared a state sponsor of terrorism passed unanimously by the United States Senate is because we have been so bipartisan on our legislative efforts, on our trips to Ukraine, where we have seen firsthand the courage and determination of the Ukrainian people. And now on the battlefield, we are seeing it again. The progress has been slow but steady. If that progress continues, as likely it will, Putin could be tempted to use a tactical nuclear weapon, or, just as likely, try to destroy the main nuclear power plant. Both actions would have dire consequences for the health of Ukraine, but also surrounding NATO nations. Poland is at immediate risk if the use of tactical nuclear weapons or destruction of a nuclear power plant causes radiation to spread, as almost certainly it would, causing significant human harm. This is not a kind of reckless or panicky resolution. It's based on fact and science, and it is meant to send a message to Vladimir Putin and even more directly to his military. They will be destroyed.
Wow, that's crazy. Let's listen. This is crazy. You're gonna think this is nuts.
They will be eviscerated if they use tactical nuclear weapons, or if they destroy a nuclear plant in a way that threatens surrounding NATO nations. Article 5 is there for a reason. It doesn't protect only against a specific soldier crossing a boundary, but harm to our NATO allies triggers our obligation when it comes from a hostile force, as would happen if there were radiation that spread, causing significant harm.
So they're saying basically it's not just a nuclear attack on Ukraine, but even a meltdown of that power plant would trigger Article 5, okay? Because the radiation would go into Poland, Romania. Romania and Poland are right next to Ukraine. They're not that far away. I mean, the distance is like, just to give you guys an idea, the distance, Ukraine from east to west is about as long as, going from like New York City to Chicago. That's about, if you go from like, the Donbass, all the way to Lviv. That's like going from New York to Chicago. Okay, so if they detonate the nuclear plant imagine a nuclear power plant detonating in New York City somewhere. Of course, the radiation could travel into the Midwest or to the South. So just to give you an idea that it's not that far away. Okay, it's not. And if they use nuclear weapons, it's not. It's like, it's just like going over one or two states. So it's very plausible that could happen if nuclear weapons are used or there's a meltdown of the power plant. But I want to just replay what he said. He said that they would be eviscerated. I mean, that is just crazy to hear, especially coming from a Democrat. Blumenthal, he has a reputation of being a very ultra-liberal senator. It's funny to hear someone like that using these kinds of words. So let's listen again, because this is just, I can't even believe what I'm hearing right now.
Significant human harm. This is not a kind of reckless or continues, as likely it will. Putin could be tempted to use a tactical nuclear weapon, or, just as likely, try to destroy the main nuclear power plant. Both actions would have dire consequences for the health of Ukraine, but also surrounding NATO nations. Poland is at immediate risk if the use of tactical nuclear weapons or destruction of a nuclear power plant causes radiation to spread, as almost certainly it would, causing significant human harm. This is not a kind of reckless or panicky resolution. It's based on fact and science, and it is meant to send a message to Vladimir Putin and even more directly to his military. They will be destroyed. They will be eviscerated.
Let me play that for you guys again. This is crazy.
To his military. They will be destroyed. They will be eviscerated. They will be destroyed. They will be eviscerated. And even more directly to his military. They will be destroyed. They will be eviscerated.
They will be eviscerated, okay? Wow, guys. I mean, just absolutely strong words here. I mean, this is just absolutely unbelievable. Let me continue on here. So he's basically saying that because Ukraine is successful so far, that he's worried that Russia could use tactical nuclear weapons or blow up the nuclear plant to try to thwart the offensive, okay, the counteroffensive. And he said both of those actions would trigger Article 5 of NATO because, you know, it doesn't matter that Ukraine is not a part of NATO. Detonating nuclear weapons right next to NATO or melting down a nuclear power plant, it's right next door. You know, it's like if Mexico, you know, blew up a nuclear power plant in Canada or something. You know, I mean, of course we would react to that or something. I mean, it's right next door to NATO. So this is huge news, guys. And then all those EAMs yesterday. Something big is about to go down. Make sure you guys are preparing. You know, finalize all your preps. Think about all the gaps in your preps, and make sure you have all the bases covered. The basics covered. You know, food, water, shelter, self-defense, sanitation. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? How are you going to manage your waste? Where are you going to get water from? Do you have a way of recharging your batteries? Start thinking about this stuff now.
If they use tactical nuclear weapons or if they destroy a nuclear plant in a way that threatens surrounding NATO nations. Article 5 is there for a reason. It doesn't protect only against a specific soldier crossing a boundary, but harm to our NATO allies triggers our obligation when it comes from a hostile force.
Okay, so he's basically saying that, you know, you don't have to actually invade a NATO country to invoke Article 5, which is a misconception that a lot of people have. Okay, any kind of harm to a NATO ally would invoke a response. So we'll see if Putin tests it. We'll see.
As would happen if there were radiation that spread, causing significant harm to human life. And this message ought to be taken seriously by Vladimir Putin's generals. His military risks total obliteration by NATO forces if they are so reckless and irrational as to resort to tactical nuclear weapons.
Let me go back to so you guys can hear that. Let's hear that again.
By Vladimir Putin's generals, his military risks total obliteration by NATO forces if they are so reckless and irrational as to resort to tactical nuclear weapons. That Vladimir Putin's generals, his military risks total obliteration by NATO forces if they are so reckless and irrational as to resort to tactical nuclear weapons.
Total obliteration, guys. total obliteration. Do you hear what he just said? He didn't just say, he said Vladimir Putin's generals and his military face total obliteration, which means that NATO would not just target Russian infantry forces, tanks or bases and stuff. He's saying that they would potentially go after the high command of the Russian military. Okay, this is absolutely unprecedented. Let's hear that again so you can hear. He says this is a message to his generals. His generals and his military would face total obliteration.
Seriously, by Vladimir Putin's generals, his military risks total obliteration.
I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I take that back. I misinterpreted it. He didn't say that. He was saying taken seriously by Putin and his generals. Scratch that. I made a mistake. He's saying that the military itself would face total obliteration. Let's continue here.
By NATO forces, if they are so reckless and irrational as to resort to tactical nuclear weapons that endanger the world.
And I'll just add, we'll take questions. Nobody really thought he was going to go into Ukraine. Right. We were worried about it. We authored pre-invasion sanctions that were not adopted. To think that Putin wouldn't do this is really irrational given what he has done. I mean, he's committed industrial level war crimes, thinking he will eventually get away with it. His goal now is to wear the West out, slow down the counteroffensive, get people in Washington and other capitals of the world to just break, and offer him some face-saving, life-saving deal. The Ukrainians are in it to win it. They're not interested in having to give up their land by force of arms to the American people. If he gets away with this Putin, there goes Taiwan.
Thank you, Jacqueline James, for that donation. I appreciate all your support. Thank you so much.
But I was stationed in Europe during the Cold War. We always were worried about breaking the Fulda Gap, where Russia would just send, hundreds of thousands of troops to try to destabilize Europe. Ronald Reagan put in tactical nuclear weapons instead of trying to match them man for man and tank for tank, to let them know what the consequences of an invasion of Europe would look like. It was deterrence. It worked. We have a chance now to deter. If you want to avoid a war between Russia and NATO, you need to jump on board with what we're trying to do. We're trying to send a clear signal, unequivocal signal, that if you go down the road of exploding a nuclear weapon in Ukraine to try to turn the tide of battle, that would be an attack on NATO. If you blow up a nuclear power plant to create chaos, that could be considered an attack on NATO.
All right, so there you have it. He says it clearly. If you use nuclear weapons to try to turn the tide of the war, it could be considered an attack on, it will be considered an attack on NATO. And then he says if they detonate the nuclear plant to cause chaos, also the same thing, considered an attack on NATO. Thank you, Island Girl, Islamorada. Thank you, Island Girl. I appreciate your donation. Thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's very nice of you. So, there you have it. Let's just go back and hear that again.
The tide of battle. That would be an attack on NATO. If you blow a signal that if you go down the road of exploding a nuclear weapon in Ukraine to try to turn the tide of battle, that would be an attack on NATO. If you blow up a nuclear power plant to create chaos, that could be considered an attack on NATO. This is a conversation worth having. Let's have it now. If you want to deter war, you have to send clear signals, the cost of action. And we have been very unclear to Putin, but now we need to be really clear. Thanks.
Great.
So there you have it, guys. Let's just listen a little bit more. They take some questions here. Let's listen a little bit more, but this is huge news. These are senior senators proposing this, and it's a bipartisan. So these guys are totally opposite politically. I mean, Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham, Republican, Democrat, and a lot of the senators have been supporting Ukraine. It's been bipartisan support, so I don't see why they wouldn't pass this resolution. But this is huge news, guys. And alone, if this was just by itself, I wouldn't really be worried about it. But with everything that's been happening the last couple of days, you had the massive number of emergency action messages yesterday, and then Biden saying that that the threat of nuclear weapons in Ukraine is real. Zelensky today saying that Russia is planning a sabotage attack of the nuclear plant. Uh, I mean, the NATO air defender exercises going on. I mean, there's just so much going on right now. So for them to come out and say this now, they must have some kind of intelligence. That's what I'm getting at. These guys must have some kind of intelligence for them to propose this now. They must have some kind of information. Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival, thanks for tuning in and moderating. Check out my buddy Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival. He's the moderator in here, one of the moderators. Check him out. Great channel. Thank you, Patricia, for your donation and your support on Patreon. Bradley, thank you again for your donation. I appreciate you, and thanks for all your support. Chrissy, wow, Chrissy S., thank you so much for that donation. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I hope you're having a great evening, and thanks for tuning in. So let me continue here. Let's continue on and listen to the rest of this.
That President Biden is on the same page as you guys on this, and obviously Stoltenberg was here recently. Did you discuss any of this with him?
I talked to Jake Sullivan. They're treating the threat real. I mean,
let me just say one thing, okay? Let me say one thing before we continue. Yeah, these guys are just senators, but you got to think about this from a business point of view. The reason why these guys are out here saying this is because Biden doesn't want to say it. Because what I personally think is going on here is this would be like, if your boss at work doesn't like you, but he's afraid to say that he wants to fire you. So what he does is he gets, let's say, one of your coworkers or a different manager to kind of, say to you, hey, if you don't start working better, we're going to, I think the boss is going to fire you, rather than directly your boss saying to you, look, if you don't do your job, I'm going to fire you. Let's say your boss gets your coworker to say that to you and kind of say it in a more indirect way. And that's what I think is happening here. I think that this is all planned out. I think they all sat down together. And I think that these senators here probably spoke with Biden about it. And Biden said, listen, I can't say this. I can't say these things because it's going to destroy any chance of diplomacy. We have to keep diplomacy as an option. So why don't you guys as senators propose the idea, and then that offloads me from any kind of responsibility, because now it's the senators that are saying they're going to obliterate NATO, not Biden himself. Imagine if Biden was out there saying, yeah, if you launch nuclear weapons at Ukraine, we're gonna obliterate your military. I mean, that would be like worldwide chaos, and it would be like nuclear war, basically. I mean, there would be like cause for a potential preemptive strike by Russia. So obviously, Biden doesn't want to go out there and say that directly. So what does he do? They sit down and they say, okay, why don't you guys come up with a resolution and say it, because I can't say it. That's what I think is going on here.
this is a statement from the President of the United States. And I have my differences with President Biden, but I think he's right. I can't believe it hadn't made more news.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden says threat of Putin using a tactical nuclear weapon is real. He is right. So Jake Sullivan, they're considering their options. They will do what they need to do, and what we're trying to do is tell them, the administration and Stoltenberg, you need to be clear publicly or through back channels that we basically have your back. We're trying to tell the president that Democrat and Republican, we think this is a widely held view in the Senate, that we would have your back to make sure that Putin does not use a nuke. You know, I've been around for a while. I've never seen a greater threat to the use of nuclear weapons than I do now, maybe since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Let's listen to this again.
You know, I've been around for a while. I've never seen a greater threat to the use of nuclear weapons than I do now, maybe since the Cuban Missile Crisis. I've never seen a greater threat to the use of nuclear weapons than I do now, maybe since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Senator Graham.
Yeah.
Speaking of deterrence, would you support a year-end spending deal that would raise non-defense discretionary spending in exchange for a greater increase in defense discretionary spending? You, again today, said you were not happy with the levels.
Yeah, I mean, the DHS budget is being cut. Okay, fentanyl is pouring in at record levels. Now's not the time to cut DHS budget. Yeah, there'll be a conversation between senators, among senators, and hopefully the House to increase our spending to deter China. Reducing the size of the Navy, U.S. Navy, doesn't deter China. But we'll get to that. But what I want to focus on like a laser is that President Biden said to the world that he thought the use of a tactical nuclear weapon by Putin in Ukraine to turn things around, turn a war around he's losing, is real. And we're here to say we agree with you, President Biden, and we're trying to create a situation to have your back.
Yeah. Senator Blumenthal, on the topic of national security, TikTok responded to you yesterday, seeming to admit that they're storing U.S. user data, some U.S. user data on servers in China. Wondering what your response to their reply to you is, and whether you believe that the TikTok CEO lied under oath when saying that that wasn't the case.
I think that the truthfulness of the CEO, TikTok CEO, ought to be examined very carefully. I'm not about to make an open and shut accusation of perjury. I've tried perjury cases, and I know there are a number of factors that have to be examined to determine whether or not charges should be brought. But let me just say, I fail to understand how he could give the answers that he did, given what we know now, if he wanted to respond truthfully. And at the very least, he may well have misled the Congress. And I think we need to put all of our options on the table as to how we deal with TikTok, not just because they are collecting and storing surveilled information, but they are failing to tell the truth to America. And I want to make sure that whatever I do is bipartisan, because I think we have a common interest in this issue.
Are you concerned at all by the $6 billion that was found by the Pentagon, that they miscalculated in Ukraine funding? And, you know, are you worried that either maybe there won't be a need for another supplemental before the end of the fiscal year, or can I get your thoughts on that?
You know, let me just say, I believe personally, I don't speak for anyone but myself, I think we're going to need another supplemental for Ukraine. We are keeping track very closely of how arms sent to Ukraine are tracked and used by them. I'm satisfied that Ukraine is cracking down on any corruption that may be occurring. We need to support the prosecutor. I've talked to him as recently as a few weeks ago by phone, by Zoom. And I'm pretty confident that President Zelensky is going to use efficiently and cost-effectively the weapons that we're providing.
See, Island Girl, thank you again for the donation. I appreciate that. Russians, Iranians, and Chinese have been ramping up operations and training troops in Cuba. I have many good friends and contacts from Cuba and have heard this firsthand. Okay, That's really good to know. I'm assuming you're from the Caribbean. The name Island Girl. I'm assuming you're from the Caribbean. Thanks for that intel, and thanks so much for that donation. That's very, very good information there. K. Paul, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. And thank you again, Chrissy, for that donation. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Florida Keys. Okay, you're in the Florida Keys. Okay. Thanks for all that intel. Yeah, I appreciate that. China has a spy base in Cuba now, and from what I believe, Russia has a submarine base now in Cuba. So I think they put that there years ago when Obama was president. They have a submarine base now in Cuba, and I think it might be left over from the Cold War. They probably just revamped it. And then also, I think in Venezuela, they have a sub base too. Island Girl says Freeport, Jamaica. Oh, that's awesome. Jamaica's an awesome country. I really hope to visit Jamaica someday. Awesome, beautiful country and really cool people. So let me continue here. We got a couple more minutes of this. I want to get through this, and then I have some more breaking news. This is just the tip of the iceberg here. This is huge news, guys. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard that they missed it by $6 billion, it makes you concerned. But the good news is the weapons and technology we have given the Ukrainians have been used to full effect. You got to remember, we're 400 and whatever day we're in this war, 470 whatever day it is. We were told in 4 days Kyiv would fall. So we're talking over a year later about taking back territory. People around town, I know you're busy. I know there's a lot going on. The country's sort of a state of perpetual conflict here. We need to understand how amazing this has been. Mm-hmm. And yes, they'll need more equipment and more technology and more weapons.
Thank you, Smoke and Swamp, for moderating tonight. I appreciate your help. Thank you for taking care of the trolls. I really appreciate that. Have a great night, man.
They're not asking for a single soldier. We have said till we're blue in the face, if you think Putin will stop in Ukraine, you're not listening to what he's saying. This is a moment in world history to stop one of the most aggressive, brutal people on the planet, send a signal to China, you don't want to go down Putin's road in Taiwan. So yes, I expect there will be more military assistance needed by Ukraine, and I want to supply it. I'm looking for a supplemental from the administration about what they would need later in the fall, Ukraine, evaluate it, and try to get it passed. I know our military is going to need some extra help, but I guess the point we're making here is that as Putin gets more desperate, as he loses grip, as his army begins to disintegrate, this is a dangerous time. So we're not going to let his threat stop us from helping Ukraine, because that's what he wants us to do. Threaten us, bully us. We need to send a message to him. More importantly, as Senator Bloom said, to those around him, if you up the ante this way, all hell will break loose on you 10 times greater than it is today. And Senator Blumenthal, and he's been nice to me, you have been a source of constant messaging. You have been to Ukraine like I have. We're all in it. We're going to stay together as a team. And I think we're speaking for a lot of senators here that want to let Putin know, don't go down this road. You do so at your own peril.
Senator Graham, if Putin does use a tactical nuclear weapon, would that warrant the U.S. or another NATO ally using a tactical nuclear weapon in retaliation?
We're not generals. We're saying, in our view, that would invoke Article 5.
Exactly.
Okay. You can send tanks into Poland or some neighboring NATO nation, or you can explode a weapon inside of Ukraine that makes living conditions in surrounding NATO nations unbearable. If we are not willing to say that exploding a nuclear weapon in Ukraine would be an attack on NATO, there will be a nuclear weapon exploded in Ukraine. If we can say you do that, you're at war with NATO, we think we can deter them.
So there you have it. Jacqueline James, thank you for that donation. Please pray for my minor kids. Their father passed away. So sorry to hear that, Jacqueline. I'll keep them in my prayers. Keep them in your prayers, guys. Anybody who's watching, pray for Jacqueline's four minor kids. Let's just continue on here, but I mean, you can clearly see where this is going. I mean, this is huge.
And remember, 2 points here. When Senator Graham says, rightly, we're not generals, there are a vast variety of options we would have without using nuclear weapons ourselves. One of them, for example, to destroy the means of delivering those tactical nuclear weapons by the Russians. In other words, to undercut or degrade their ability to use those tactical nuclear weapons without ourselves using them in return. Second point, to anybody who is thinking, gosh, are they talking about using U.S. troops, putting American men and women service members on the ground in Ukraine? No. What we're trying to do is avoid American troops being engaged by a miscalculation on Putin's part that we would simply sit by if that radiation causes harm to our allies in a way that NATO is designed to forestall.
So basically what he's saying is that if NATO doesn't respond to a use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine or a destruction of the nuclear power plant, that it would basically make NATO look like it's ineffective and useless. It would basically make NATO look useless and not relevant anymore. If the radiation drifts into Romania and Poland and NATO just doesn't do anything about it, I mean, what is Putin going to think? So he's got a point there. But what's interesting is he specifically mentions attacking the launch sites, which is, I mean, there's launch sites in Russia. So does that mean we're going to launch missiles into Russia or something? I don't know. Or are they going to respond by attacking the weapons in Belarus? And maybe that's why Putin moved those missiles into Belarus, because he knows that the West is going to respond. And so when the West responds, it's not going to be on Russian soil, it'll be on Belarusian soil. But he specifically says degrade Russia's ability to launch more missiles. So, I mean, just, using common sense, that basically means that we would strike Russian bases with, different types of munitions. That's what it sounds like to me. Let's listen again.
Talking about using U.S. troops, putting American men and women service members on the ground in Ukraine? No. What we're trying to do is avoid American troops being nuclear weapons ourselves. One of them, for example, to destroy the means of delivering those tactical nuclear weapons by the Russians.
Okay, so he says destroy the means of delivery. Okay.
In other words, to undercut or degrade their ability to use those tactical nuclear weapons without ourselves using them in return. Second point, to anybody who is thinking, gosh, are they talking about using U.S. troops, putting American men and women service members on the ground in Ukraine? No. What we're trying to do is avoid American troops being engaged by a miscalculation on Putin's part that we would simply sit by if that radiation causes harm to our allies in a way that NATO is designed to forestall. So all we're doing is saying the NATO obligation is real. Harm to our allies under Article 5 means we are involved when it is harm resulting from military action. And, you know, I would just point out, and I'm so glad that Senator Graham brought this along, because this is from Monday of this week.
Yeah.
This is in real time. President Biden warning about this threat. And I am surprised, as Senator Graham is, that there wasn't more attention given to it. I understand there's a lot going on, but we're speaking for ourselves, not for the administration. I wouldn't be standing here if the administration had said to me, please don't do this. It will
Exactly right.
it will be against our national interest. So again, the administration should speak for itself, but I want to commend President Biden for the action that he's taken in aiding Ukraine. Senator Graham and I urged before the invasion that stronger action be taken, and now is the time for this message to be sent so that a miscalculation by Vladimir Putin doesn't increase the consequences of this war.
May I ask on narrative of provoking Putin and Russia? Right now, administration of Biden doesn't provide Ukraine with long-range missiles, ATACMS, and they explain it because it may provoke Putin, provoke Russia. And what is your assessment on that statement?
They've said it
right now.
right. They've said it about everything. If you send tanks, that'll be provocative. If you do HIMARS, that'll be provocative. They're trying to bluff us in. What are we trying to do? We're not invading Russia. We're trying to kick the Russians out of Ukraine without using American military men and women. So if you don't want to use ground troops, which I don't, provide the resources to hit the Russians as hard as you can inside of Ukrainian territory. The ATACMS will work better than the HIMARS. They've moved back. The HIMARS have really been effective.
Right.
You know, the tanks have been effective. That's why we need F-16s, so we can have better air defenses for the ground forces of Ukraine. So, no, this is a continuing drama here. Every time we get ready to deliver a decisive blow, they say these things. Focus on the outcome. The outcome is to evict the Russians from Ukraine, stabilize the world, not to invade Russia. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about stopping aggression in Ukraine before it spreads to the rest of Europe, deter China, and now we're talking about if you use a nuclear weapon as an effort to turn around this war, you're not going to turn around the war in Ukraine. You're going to get into war with NATO.
And I might just say, you know, there's really a history.
Wow, this is just huge. This is crazy, guys. I can't even believe what I'm hearing. Let's listen to this is insane. Let me play this again.
The Russians from Ukraine, stabilize the world, not to invade Russia. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about stopping aggression in Ukraine before it spreads to the rest of Europe, deter China, and now we're talking about if you use a nuclear weapon as an effort to turn around this war, you're not going to turn around the war in Ukraine. You're going to get into war with NATO.
I mean, it's just so transparent, guys. I mean, that is just so transparent.
And I might just say, you know, there's really a history here, going back to 2014, when we were on the Armed Services. I was on the Armed Services Committee.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rip Curl. I wonder also how China's going to see this. I mean, I personally don't think China is planning to attack Taiwan anytime soon, but I think they're definitely watching how we respond to Russia with this war. And if we respond in a weak way, then I think they're going to attack Taiwan sooner, in my opinion. I could be wrong, though, but that's what I think.
We were urging lethal weapons to be provided. The response from the administration at that point, it was President Obama, no, because we don't want to provoke Russia. Well, the invasion occurred anyway. And that was in response to the 2014 invasion. Now we've had the 2022 invasion.
It's interesting that Blumenthal actually just basically kind of kind of just threw Obama under the bus, which, Obama is a Democrat just like him. He basically just threw Obama under the bus by saying that, Obama didn't want to provide weapons when Ukraine was initially invaded in 2014 when Russia took Crimea, and Obama didn't want to get involved. And then he's basically saying now that it doesn't matter because Russia ended up invading again anyway. So very interesting that he would do that.
And Senator Graham's absolutely right. The HIMARS, the Bradley and Stryker armored vehicles, the Abrams tanks, the Leopard and Challenger tanks, at every turn, the fear, and it's not an irrational fear, but it's proven to be unfounded, was that Vladimir Putin would somehow escalate. Every day this war goes on is a day that he is escalating the war.
Right.
He is attacking infrastructure. He's escalating the destruction of the dam that causes disease, loss of crops, and so forth. That's an escalation. And our fear is that he will further escalate in a way that will involve Article 5. Nobody wants American troops on the ground there. So I've got to go back to the Armed Services.
Okay.
Committee.
One last question. Yeah.
One last question.
On China, I'd love to get your reaction to President Biden's comments at a fundraising event likening Chinese President Xi Jinping to a dictator, especially on the heels of Secretary Blinken's visit to China. Are you concerned that that might exacerbate tensions, and would you consider her character?
So, pretty crazy, guys. So there you have it. And here's the message from Zelensky from earlier today, where he said that Russia was planning to sabotage the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and cause a radiation leakage. So let's watch what he says here. So he says, "Dear Ukrainians and all the people around the world, all of them, I emphasize this, we have just had a report from our intelligence and the security service of Ukraine. 2 points. The Russian terrorist attack at the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant that took place, and another terrorist attack, which unfortunately is being prepared by the Russian occupiers at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Regarding Kakhovka, Ukrainian intelligence and the security service of Ukraine have gathered new evidence of how Russian terrorists blew up the dam and other structures of the Novokakhovka hydroelectric power plant. It was an absolutely deliberate, premeditated crime in the occupied territory at a plant that was under the full control of the occupiers. And importantly, last year we warned the world that Russia was preparing such a terrorist attack. We warned them when we received the first confirmed information about the mining of the hydroelectric power plant. Now concerning the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, I remind those who have forgotten this is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Everyone in the world, the IAEA, all countries, all leaders know exactly what is happening there. Russia uses the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant as an element in its aggression. It occupies the plant. It uses it to cover the shelling of neighboring cities. It keeps weapons and troops there. Now our intelligence has received information that Russia is considering a scenario of a terrorist attack at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, a terrorist attack with radiation leakage. They have prepared everything for this. Unfortunately, I have repeatedly had to remind that radiation has no state borders, and who it will hit is determined only by the wind direction. We share all available information with our partners, everyone in the world, all the evidence, Europe, America, China, Brazil, India, the Arab world, Africa, all countries, absolutely everyone should know this. International organizations, absolutely everyone. So this is huge news, guys. Okay, so Zelensky is claiming they have intelligence that Russia is going to try to blow the nuclear power plant, and the IAEA made a statement about that, and they said that they are not aware of any kind of explosives being placed at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So let me see if I can read to you what. Let's read now what the IAEA said. So this was update number 167 from the IAEA. All right, June the 21st. Let me scroll down here and read to you what the IAEA said. They said the IAEA is aware of reports of mines having been placed near the cooling pond. No mines were observed at the site during the Director General's visit, including the cooling pond. However, the IAEA is aware of previous placement of mines outside the plant perimeter, which the agency has previously reported, and also at particular places inside, which security personnel at the plant explained were for defensive purposes. So they say security personnel, that literally means Russian army troops. Our assessment of those particular placements was that while the presence of any explosive device is not in line with safety standards, the main safety functions of the facility would not be significantly affected. We are following the issue with great attention, Director General Grossi said. I don't know if I believe. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that, but that's what they're saying. They also said here that they only have one electric line that connects this nuclear power plant to the electric grid, and if something happens to that electric line, there's no way that they're going to be able to have power to that plant unless they run generators, and generators eventually run out of fuel, and when that happens, they're not going to be able to circulate the pumps to cool the reactor and the spent fuel, because it's not just the reactors. They also have a ton of spent fuel on site. Okay, so for those of you guys who've never researched about how all this works, basically what happens is every time, every nuclear power plant, the nuclear fuel has a certain life expectancy. It's like anything else. It's like a battery, and once that battery is drained, it's no longer useful. So they have to put fresh uranium in there, and they take the old stuff out and they put it in. They have to put it in like cooling pools, so that keeps it cool, and they spray water, and so it has to continuously be submerged underwater to stay cool. And they do that for like up to 10 years. Okay, they have to continuously pump cold water around those spent fuel rods, and then after like 10 years they finally cool down enough to where they can put them in a dry cask. Okay, a dry cask is literally just a fancy word for a giant bin filled with sand. Okay, imagine like one of those grain silos. If you ever see a grain silo, it's like a giant concrete grain silo underground filled with sand, and they put the uranium in there, and then they cover it up. But before they can do that, they have to cool it down enough with water for 10 years. It literally takes 10 years for it to cool down enough to where they can put it into that dry cask. Okay, so they have to not only keep those spent fuel rods cool, but they also have to keep the main reactors cool. Okay, so they're also saying that the power plant is getting water, even though the reservoir dropped. They're getting water from some kind of discharge inlet, and they're getting water from that, and they haven't had to tap into the cooling pond, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know if I buy all of this stuff, but that's what they're saying, and they're saying that there's just a few months of water left in that cooling pond. Assuming normal precipitation. So so a few months max. So I don't know what their plan is going to be. They have to do something, because once that cooling pond dries up, they're really screwed. So this is a crazy situation here. Yeah, hit the thumbs up button if you can. Thank you, Lorna. I appreciate that. Yes, people are going to panic if the power plant melts down. Absolutely, people are going to panic. So, get ahead of the curve and prepare yourself now. McCarter, Woodland, and Farm, thank you for being a member for 3 months. That's awesome. So, pretty crazy stuff. I don't know if I should read this whole thing. It's kind of a lot to read, but that's kind of just the summary here. They also moved some spent nuclear fuel from Chernobyl to another nuclear power plant in Ukraine. In the Rivne nuclear power plant, they transferred spent nuclear fuel from Chernobyl to Rivne, which is pretty interesting. They just recently did that. So pretty interesting there. So I'll read these paragraphs because it gives a summary of what's going on with the cooling pool. Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is planning to resume pumping water that still remains accessible despite a major loss of water in the Kakhovka reservoir caused by the destruction of the downstream dam earlier this month. For the past 2 weeks, Europe's largest nuclear power plant has received the cooling water it needs from the reserves held by a discharge channel of the nearby Zaporizhzhia thermal power plant. This is separate from the reservoir, whose water level has plunged since the dam was severely damaged on June the 6th. So they're saying that there's another power plant nearby called the Zaporizhzhia thermal power plant. I've never heard of that. So a thermal power plant usually means they're using like natural gas or geothermal, heat from the ground. And I'm guessing that that's nearby. Let's actually check out the map here. Oh, it looks like it uses coal. So they use coal. So this is a coal-fired plant that's nearby, and I'm guessing that they're somehow routing the water from that one to the nuclear plant. So that's pretty clever. I'm going to see if I can pull it up on the map, but that's what the IAEA is saying. They're saying that they're using water from a discharge channel from this coal-fired plant nearby. Water from this channel is used to supply ZNPP's spray ponds, which are cooling the 6 shutdown reactors and spent fuel storage. This water also keeps a large cooling pond at the plant full, mainly compensating for evaporation. As a result, and in line with expectations, the channel's water level has been declining by up to 10 centimeters per day and is currently measured at just over 17 meters. The water in this channel is still projected to provide cooling for many weeks. So they're saying they have a channel that has 17 meters of water in it now, and they're losing 10 centimeters of water per day in this channel. So I don't know if anybody's good at math out there. K. Paul, I don't know if you're listening, K. Paul, or if you went to bed already, but looks like this channel coming from the coal-fired plant has 17 meters of water, and they're losing 10 centimeters per day. So if you do the math, I don't know how many days that would be before it dries up. The water is projected to provide cooling for many weeks. The IAEA team of experts at the site was informed by the plant that the ZNPP spray ponds are also replenished through pumping from a drainage system fed by underground water in the area of the ponds. Okay, so they're saying that they're using some kind of storm drain or drain some kind of underground water that they're pumping to replenish their water supply. The ZNPP is now preparing to replenish the ZTPP discharge channel either by pumping water from the ZTPP inlet channel, which was the normal practice prior to the dam damage, or from a body of water in the ZNPP port. Okay, so they're saying they want to refill that discharge channel by pumping water from an inlet channel for the thermal plant, not the nuclear plant, the thermal plant. So let's just look at the map here. Let's see where this thermal plant is. Let me see here. Let's see where this thing is. Okay, so this is the ZTPP, Zaporizhia Thermal Plant. So this is a coal-fired plant, and it's literally right next to the nuclear plant. Okay, so it looks like it's just literally about a mile away. All right, this is a picture of it right here. Let's look at some of the pictures. This is that coal plant. So they're pulling water from this coal plant to replenish the nuclear plant. Okay, so that's pretty smart. So it's literally right next to the nuclear plant. They're using a channel, discharge channel. I don't know if it's one of these channels here. You can see there's like these big channels here. Maybe they're using this channel and they're funneling it in this way somehow. Maybe that's what they're doing. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. But that's what they're saying. I mean, they could just be, saying all this stuff so people think that nothing is going on. Together, the large cooling pond, the smaller spray ponds, and the discharge channel have sufficient water for some months, but the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is also taking action to preserve and replenish these reserves as much as possible. It is also exploring alternative ways of getting water. Okay, so that's what the IAEA says about that. We have this tweet here from the British Royal Air Force. Okay, the British Air Force, they're showing a picture here of a Russian Tu-135 and two Sukhoi 27s flying close to NATO airspace. This was in Estonia. And so the British Air Force Typhoons intercepted them. Okay, so this was somewhere near Estonia. And so this is the plane, and the big plane is the Tu-134. And these two planes on the right are the Sukhois, and then the smaller one all the way, the plane all the way off to the left is the Typhoon, the British Typhoon. Okay, so these two right here on the right, these are the Sukhois, the Russian escorts. And then on the left here is the British Typhoon. Look at how close these planes are, guys. I mean, look at how close. I mean, this is literally like, they're like right next to each other. I thought these were all Russian planes. This one right here is a British plane. Look how close they are. I mean, you're talking yards apart. I mean, this is crazy, guys. All it takes is one mistake in a situation like this for things to spiral out of control. Here's a better picture here. So here on the left, you have the British Typhoon. And then in the middle, you have the Sukhoi 27. That's the Russian escort. And then on the right is the Tu-134, which I'm assuming is a VIP plane. But this is a Russian Navy plane belonging to the Baltic Fleet. And they can also use these planes for practicing bombing runs when they're training new pilots on their heavy bombers, like their Tu-95 Bear bombers. They use these Tu-134s as a way of training, so they don't have to put miles on the real bombers. Kind of like here in the U.S., we have F-15s that we use for training F-16 pilots. Here's the Sukhoi 27 here. Okay, look at how close they are to each other. This is insane. I mean, they could literally wonder if they're giving the middle finger to each other. It looks like he's looking at them. Maybe they're giving the middle finger to each other. I don't know, but you can see the Russian pilot is clearly looking at him. So a lot of tension right now. A lot of tension going on. My Brighton says, I'm in the UK and would have no idea without you, Greg. Thank you so much, My Brighton. I appreciate that. John Hoover, I hope you're doing well. The next major dam is in Kremenchuk, where I live in Ukraine. If Russia blows that dam, it will make the Nova Kakhovka Dam look insignificant. Yeah, that's also a massive one. Yeah, the Kremenchuk Dam is huge. Yeah, let's actually take a look at that so people could see, what what we're talking about here. So this is Ukraine. This is the old Nova Kakhovka Reservoir right down here, and you can see this is the old reservoir. The Google Maps hasn't updated it yet, and then up here is Kremenchuk, and there's a massive reservoir up there. So yeah, that's a huge reservoir. There was also talk that the Russians could blow the dam over here, the Kiev Dam. There's a dam just north of Kiev, and there's this huge reservoir. And if they blew the dam there, it would flood all of Kiev. Look at this reservoir here. So the Russians were saying they could blow the dam here possibly as well. So yeah, it's crazy times we're living in. Let me see, what else do I have? So that's pretty much the major breaking news at the moment. Just lots of stuff going on the last 48 hours. Want to just give you guys a quick update here on these tropical systems here, tropical storms. We have two tropical storms now. We have Tropical Storm Brett and we have Tropical Storm Cindy over here near the equator. So here we have Tropical Storm Brett. Let's look at the warning cone. So they're having this thing stay as a storm and move west towards Central America. So that's not going to be a threat to us. And let's see what the other one is doing. Tropical Storm Cindy looks like it's going to go towards the eastern seaboard possibly, unless the Gulf Stream takes it out. But it's going to weaken to a depression as it gets closer to the U.S. So right now, at the moment, we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about that for now. But just absolutely crazy stuff going on. So wanted to just give you guys this update. Let me see if I have anything else. I don't think I have anything else. Let me see here. Not sure if I got anything else here. It looks like my screen was a little bit messed up, so I couldn't. Actually, my screen was fine. Never mind. Good night, New York Adventurer. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to have you in here. Mr. Street says, thank you, NYPrepper. You probably don't remember me, but I was listening in when you had 100+ in the chat. Blew up, homie. Yeah, I think your name sounds familiar. I think I might remember. Yeah, I remember those days. I remember those days when my chats were a lot smaller. My first live stream, I had like 10 people. I remember that. Yeah, those are the good old days. Lynn Dunn, great to see you in here. Lorna says, welcome back, NYPrepper. Good night, Country Christian. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Cats 1964, for tuning in. It was great to have you in here. Thanks for all of the support. I appreciate all you guys. Yeah, it looks like a Russian Navy flag. Yeah, because that was part of the Russian Baltic Fleet. So yeah, that was a Russian Navy plane. Tracy says, good night, Greg. I'm getting in here late, rewatching. Okay, Tracy, sounds good. Thank you for rewatching, and I hope you're doing well. Trying to think if I have anything else. I'm just going to open up the chat for a few minutes here. Ross Snyderman says the live stream was really informative. Thank you, Ross. I appreciate that. Treasure Hunter says you haven't been getting notifications. That's pretty interesting. I've had a lot of people tell me that. You know what happens, YouTube with their algorithm, the way the algorithm works is like, if let's say I stop posting videos or something, the algorithm's not going to promote my videos and stuff on your feeds and everything. So it's kind of weird the way that works. Like, a lot of people have been saying that they haven't been seeing my videos and stuff, and that's the way. That's because I had a strike for 2 weeks, so I wasn't posting anything at all. So the algorithm won't promote my content even once I'm back and I'm posting again, because the algorithm, it takes a little while for it to catch up, basically. But I don't know, the notifications thing is weird. YouTube told me that they only notify up to 3 videos per 24 hours per channel. So any more than three uploads, either videos or streams, any more than 3, beyond that they don't notify. So that's why I keep it under that number. Otherwise, people just don't get the notification. Yes, I do have a Patreon. If you're interested in getting breaking news before I post to YouTube, I post to Patreon like a text summary of any breaking news that I find throughout the day. So people that are on my Patreon, they get it first before here. I'm just giving it a try to see, how I like it, how my subscribers like it. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it. We'll see how many people join. But I do post on Patreon. It's $3 a month on Patreon. And so basically, like, all this stuff that I was presenting today, people that were on my Patreon, they already got this information. Obviously not as in depth, because it was just a summary in a text format, but they got the gist of it, before I went live, probably like an hour or 2 before. And then you can also message me on there and ask me questions or whatever. Aldo Schmedak says they steal money from creators. Karen Mills says I received a notification. Post your Patreon channel, that way people can click on it. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Let's see, let me get that for you. I usually post the link underneath all of my videos. It's right at the top there. Underneath any one of my videos. I don't have it on this stream. Let me put it in this stream here. So if you go into the description, you should see my link to the Patreon in a minute here, and I'll post it in the chat as well. I'm just giving it a try. I don't know how long I'll keep it. I'll see how many more people join. But crazy times, a lot of crazy stuff going on. And thank you guys for all your support and all your concern during my strike period. I appreciate that. Jacqueline James says, I like your Patreon, but I hate that I'm notified in email. Okay, I don't know. Do you have the Patreon app? If you have the Patreon app, you should get notifications through the app on your phone if you have the Patreon app, I think. If you don't have the app, then I don't think they send you emails. So you probably have to get the Patreon app. Ross says YouTube is having problems. Kate Paul says the notification over there is fast. That's good to know. And thanks for supporting me there, Kate Paul. I appreciate that. Aldo, yeah, I agree with you, Aldo, what you're saying about demonetizing. It's true. Lorna says YouTube has been giving me fits for weeks. What's going on? Bobby Jones, thanks for joining my channel. I appreciate that, for subscribing. Thank you. From Oregon. Oregon is a beautiful place. Baldador Gamer says, I saw 15 minutes ago a plane in the Black Sea with no call sign, and it went dark after 2 minutes. Pretty interesting. Let's see what's going on real quick with the flights while you guys are still here. Looks like right now it's kind of quiet right now. But there's a ton of flights over the U.S., lots of military planes over the U.S. At this hour, at 10:52 p.m. Look at all these military planes, guys. That's a lot for this hour. I mean, that's insane. These are all military planes, various types of military planes, all of these. That's just crazy for this time of night. Usually you don't see that. Here's that E6 Mercury that I was showing you guys at the beginning. Looks like it's out in the ocean, just like I suspected it would go, just like I predicted. It's out in the ocean. That's like one of their main paths that they go. Samantha says, I'll never leave, Greg. I consider you a good friend. Oh, that was Aldo. Thank you, Aldo. Samantha says, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Aldo. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Parabellum says that the Patreon app sends notifications. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Bill Stegman says, sub to you, Greg, from the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. Awesome. I like West Virginia. West Virginia is not too far away from me. I drive through there when I go to visit my family in Tennessee. I prefer to drive through West Virginia instead of going through Virginia because the highways on Virginia, there's so many accidents on them, especially on 81. If you take 81 south, there's so many accidents and so much traffic and stuff. So I just go through West Virginia just because it's a lot less cars on the road. But I like West Virginia. It's very similar to Pennsylvania, the way it looks and the culture. Southern Cross says, I live in Kentucky, and the last couple of weeks, military jets and helicopters have been going like crazy day and night. Wow, which part of Kentucky? Are you in Western Kentucky or Eastern? There's some really important places in Kentucky as far as the military goes. You have the Paducah. There's a very important site, national security site in Western Kentucky in Paducah, which is actually a nuclear war target. If there was ever a nuclear war, that would be targeted by Russia. The Paducah site there. It's enriched uranium. It's a Paducah plant. It's they produce enriched uranium. So something to keep in mind. Yeah, Kentucky is awesome. I like Kentucky. I have I have a bunch of friends from Kentucky. Yeah, I've been to Kentucky one time. I went there last year to visit my buddy, Kentucky Patriot. He's got a YouTube channel. We did some videos together there. Island Girl says they need to send those nuke sniffers above all the Club K containers in our harbors. Yeah, that's a good Good idea. That's a really good idea. John Hoover says it's about 6 a.m. See if the NATO patrols are up and in the air. Yeah, it's pretty quiet right now. They were up in the air earlier. There were two over Poland and one over the Baltic Sea, P8 Poseidon. But in Romania, it's unless they have their transponders off, there's nothing at the moment. But usually they start to come online later on in the night over here. They start to head down into Eastern Europe from the UK or Germany, usually. So I guess over there that would be like in the evening time. Over there is when they start patrolling, or not evening time, during the midday hours. It's when they start getting down into that area. Romania, the Black Sea, Poland. So I think I'm going to wind it down for now. I don't have anything else. I think I'm going to wind it down and give you guys back the rest of your Thursday night so you can enjoy it. Maybe watch a movie or something, relax a little. But don't forget to prepare for what's coming. So, K. Paul says Energotom has a website. Okay. And Energotom news updates are under construction. Okay. That's good to know. I have to check that out. I haven't really been using them much. What's going on, Timothy? Ohio? Ohio's right next door to me. Yeah, it's pretty quiet right now over Europe. So I don't really have anything else to say. I've been on here for a while, so I think I'm gonna wind it down. But if anything breaks, I'll definitely let you guys know. Jacqueline James says this has been an informative live. Relax so we can prep like hell. Yeah, it's very scary quiet. I agree. Thank you, Lorna, for tuning in and for moderating. Thank you, Jacqueline James, Ross Snyderman, Parabellum Prepper. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all the moderators tuning in. Aldo is saying going to do more Nuke story. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Nuke story or Bigfoot. Yes, I do plan to do Bigfoot, and I do plan to do the Nuke story. I'm assuming you mean my fictional series, Dark Winter. Yes, I do have plans to do that very soon. Redneck Prepper, great to see you. Kinkoi, thanks for moderating the other day, Kinkoi, on my video. I saw your comment that there were a lot of trolls. Thank you. Mr. Streets, good to see you. Have a good night. Mama of Six, Michael Gale, thank you guys so much. And I'll keep you guys updated. So my Brighton, 4 a.m. in the UK. Wow, that's late. Thanks for staying up so late. I appreciate that. Yeah, great mods. Yeah, this channel has excellent mods. Thanks to all the mods for doing what you do. I appreciate it very much. Without the mods, this channel would be full of crazy trolls everywhere. If ZNPP melts down, will I go 24/7 live? Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely. If ZNPP melts down, yeah, I'll definitely go live. And I still stand by my original statements that if when the Ukraine counterattack starts, the main effort, I'm going to go live. I'm still standing by that, assuming I have time, based on things going on in my personal life. If I have the time to stream 24/7, I definitely will. When this main effort is going to start, because the main effort hasn't started yet. And it's possible that Putin is going to try to do something preemptively before the main effort starts. He may try to do something like, blow that plant or launch missiles. He may try to do something before the main effort starts, to stop the Ukrainians, basically. So we'll have to wait and see, though. We'll have to wait and see. Time will tell. Lorna's been a member for 2 months. Thank you, Lorna. I appreciate that. So good night, everyone. And one thing I forgot to say is I was considering doing some gaming videos. Not gaming videos, like gaming streams, like just to relax and wind down. Maybe play like some classic video games, like some old Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, some other stuff like that, and just hang out, play games every now and then, and we can talk about whatever, Ukraine or prepping, whatever, and play games at the same time. I'm thinking of doing that. I don't know how often I would do it, but let me know if you guys think that would be a good idea, if you would tune into that. I might do that every now and then, just to kind of relax. Fortnite. Yeah, I never played Fortnite. I mean, I played it, but I'm not a huge fan of Fortnite. I just don't really find it that interesting. I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but play Fortnite. Yeah, I can't play that game. I don't know why. It's too like childish for me. I need something more like, like Call of Duty or Doom or something like that, DayZ, that sounds good. Or like the Metro games. Nate says Call of Duty Mobile. DayZ, I've heard of DayZ. I haven't played it yet. I've actually been replaying the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare that came out like over 10 years ago. I highly recommend everybody replay that game, especially with everything going on now with Ukraine. It's almost like what happens in that video game is like predictive programming. For any of you guys that never played Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it's about literally Russia nuking the U.S. and invading. And, it's pretty cool. The story is just, it almost makes you wonder if it's like predictive programming, but so that's pretty much it. I'll keep you guys updated. And thanks to all the mods. Yeah, check out my Dark Winter series. I'm going to be posting more of those episodes soon. So definitely check it out. Yeah, it does sound like it could happen for sure. Yeah, Sega Genesis was awesome. That was my favorite, Sega Genesis. I grew up playing Sega Genesis. All the Sonic games, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3. Those are great games. Echo the Dolphin. Remember that game, Echo the Dolphin? That was a fantastic game. Just so many good games. Streets of Rage. That was a good one. That was one of my favorites. So take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.